me just remind you, my shit is just a little bit out of bounds in this motherfucker, you feel me? Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Studies in the Fifth Dimension. We are going over the Office of Criminal Planning Research update. This is the book I promised, Great Hill, State of California. So everything I'm talking about is real, to a detriment. It's very, very interesting, to the point where now, you have researchers and the Office of Criminal Justice Planning having to put together a research update, pretty much, just based on the different spiritual groups and the different cults and the different religious groups, and to separate the understanding, because they're all lumped into Satanism. They're all lumped into, evil shit, you know what I'm saying, based on propaganda, based on a lot of things, which they'll actually explain and break down in the book. So, if anybody wants this book, definitely let me know, DM me, hit me, and I will give you the shit. It's a very great read, 65 pages, so it's not that long. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, first they define the word occult. So let's go ahead and jump in. So occult, the word encourages a myriad of stereotypical images. A snaggletooth old hag casting evil spells, the evil heretic worshiping the dark forces of Satan, or the hedonist pagan revealing in nocturnal orgies. The contemporary strength of such stereotypes is the most effective rationale for providing law enforcement with basic and accurate primer on occult practices, as well as their widely misunderstood and diverse belief systems. Okay. Indeed, any officer investigating an alleged occult crime must be armed with a clear definitional understanding of the occult and a wide range of occult activities currently practiced in the United States. He or she must be able to make a clear distinction between the legal activities of occultists and any illegal crimes committed in conjunction with an occult ritual. Finally, as veteran occult cop of San Francisco Police Department Sandy Galli admittingly insists, investigators must shed their personal and religious prejudice when they deal with the occult, lest they tread upon the foundations of the First Amendment. There is no easy task in the face of widespread allegations about heinous occult crimes. This study was conceived and designed to simplify such tasks for the law enforcement by broadening his or her basic understanding of occult activity and occult crime, explaining the complex controversies that currently surround and confound law enforcement jurisdiction over occult activity and occult. Okay. What really matters, and then in this reception, the fear that occult and its various legal and illegal activities have permeated the nation and threatened our social, emotional, and spiritual foundations. We need to examine these perceptions by historically and contemporarily defining occult activity, drawing careful distinctions between occult activity and occult crime, learning what motivates people to become involved in the occult and some occultists to enter the world of criminality, and comprehending these controversies surrounding the emotional topic. Once these perceptions are dissected and understood, law enforcers will have a clear idea of their roles in relations to occult activity and crime. So, like I said, this is just a book for law enforcers to be able to understand and make a distinction between what is and what isn't, and when dealing with occult, right? And so this is a very great tool for us to be able to research, because what it does is it breaks down everything into a very great compendium of knowledge that you can dissect and really delve into if you want to get more into the occult and get a better understanding of what this is, right? So, let's keep going. All right. So this is just introduction right now. Just telling you everybody who contributed to this. Chapter 1, defining occult activity, the historical roots, and contemporary dimensions, right? So just what is the occult? In the very broadest sense, occult activity involves the use or secret knowledge of actions and or rituals connected to supernatural beliefs and or supernatural powers. Occult involvement with the supernatural is what clearly separates occultist beliefs and rituals from traditional Judeo-Christian belief systems. Thus, many Americans consider occultism perverse, heretical, evil, and even illegal. Most occult activities, however, are neither illegal nor are they evil, and are in fact protected under the First Amendment, guaranteeing American freedoms of religious choice. What the Constitution does not protect are illegal activities conducted by occultists in conjunction with their belief systems, the so-called occult crimes, which are the subject of the second chapter. Now, legal occult activities, the subject of this chapter, are condemned largely because many, but not all, occultists practice magic, a controversial term of itself. Magic involves the invocation of supernatural powers to control natural forces. The use of such powers adds more fuel to the definitional controversy. Consider the following. Most occultists, some of whom call themselves magicians, symbolically invoke magic, or so-called white magic, for what they call positive means, applying a herbal cure for an ailment, invoking a spell to enhance one's ability to be a better lover or obtain more satisfying job, or casting powers to protect the earth from harmful human intrusions. These practitioners don't actually summon supernatural powers or control natural forces, but rather use trickery to perform rites that are symbolic of witches, concerns, or disappointments. Now, a few occultists, often known as sorcerers, practice black magic or the dark arts. Such practitioners claim to actually invoke supernatural powers for primarily evil purposes. Now, other practitioners deplore any distinction between white and black magic, which truly, in the sense, is how you have to deal with it, because we're dealing with higher states of mind, lower states of mind. We're dealing with, human desires versus, higher consciousness, dealing with things on the fifth dimension, dealing with things at a higher state, being able to see more information, even in this world, in this reality, right? In the physical world. So they believe that the magician sets out to conquer the universe, thereby requiring entry into the darkest levels of the mind. Okay, the highest levels, the highest levels of awareness, right? To succeed, he or she must master everything in the universe, evil as well as good, cruelty as well as mercy, pain as well as pleasure. Cavendish, 1967, page 3. Thus, these practitioners argue all magic is black. It appears that to the practitioner, the type of magic practice is largely perceptual. That is, practicing magic really involves what the practitioner believes is being invoked, be it black, white, or both. To the law enforcer, however, the practitioner's perception or mood. Alright, let's go. Types of occult activity. Alright, cool. So, neo-paganism, right? The beliefs of today's neo-pagans evolved from those of the earliest primitive religions, arising out of man's early need to understand and control nature. Most primitive religions were nature-oriented, as the hunters and gatherers of early society converted to a farming economy. The spiritual beliefs of early man centered around the need to understand and respect the new farming technology. The rituals arising from such beliefs later become known as magic. The early practitioners and teachers of such magic used incantations and spells designed to help nature take a positive course in the survival and enrichment of society. Such practitioners tried to convince the gods to produce fruitful crops, provide bountiful supplies of game, heal the sick, and sometimes make their enemies ill. We're in a totally different paradigm now. Now we don't have to go to the gods. We are the gods. It's a totally different understanding in the work. Plus we're not farmers and croppers and things anymore. We don't do the same thing anymore. So the term pagan, which is derived from the Latin paganus, meaning a country dweller, was first applied during the Inquisition. Therefore, Catholic inquisitors used the word pagan to describe any opponent of Christianity. Thus, many religions which had nothing in common except status as a perceived enemy of Christianity were lumped together under one all-inclusive label, pagan, which I'm going to do another lecture, because I always got to deal with the history before, we deal with getting into the work. I'm going to do a Tantra lecture, which is going to be titled Calligamy, which is just dealing with divine union with the goddess. I'm also going to do another lecture that deals with the history of witchcraft in Europe from the 14th to the 1700s, so we can get an understanding of why there was so much fucking propaganda that was released on, these spiritual systems being something that was evil, when in actuality, these were things that rivaled the Christian church at that time, and, they were destroyed based on a power struggle. So let's go ahead and delve back into it. We're going to go to, we're going to go into witchcraft. So witchcraft. Witches are perhaps the least understood of all persons involved in the occult, like neo-pagans, which are often persecuted because they do not conform or are considered a threat to Judeo-Christian and religious traditions. However, as a veteran witch and law enforcement officer explains, witches do not believe in the Christian God or devil, but are not anti-Christian. They're simply different. Indeed, the controversy even surrounds the root of the word witch. Some claim it stems from the Celtic word wicked and Wicca, meaning wit or wisdom. Others cite derivations from Sanskrit words wick and wake, meaning to bend or turn. Depending upon the root structure, a witch was either a wise person in a village with healing powers or someone skilled in the craft of shaping, bending, or changing reality. Contemporary definitions such as Webster's, one that is credited with malignant supernatural powers, adds fuel to the stereotypical image of ugly, snaggletooth old hags who conjure up malevolent potions for malevolent ends. Such an image, however, is both historically and contemporarily simplistic. As medieval historian Jeffrey B. Russell explains, he's cool, over the years, 3 quite different meanings have been attributed to witchcraft. The practice of simple sorcery, the charms or spells used in many societies worldwide to accomplish such practice or such practical ends as healing a child, assuring the fertility of crops, or warding off an enemy. The neo-paganism movement of the late 20th century, in which small groups are involved in pagan belief systems, and the diabolical witchcraft allegedly occurring in Europe between 14 and 1700, whereby witches worshiped Satan, practiced evil sorcery, and desecrated Christian symbols and rituals through Black Mass. It is the latter group, the diabolical witches, who have been the center of historical and contemporary debates, as demonstrated in the occult debate issue. While accusations of widespread witchcraft flourished in medieval Europe and colonial America, the fear began to subside by the early 1700s. It was not until the mid-20th century that witches again resurfaced in American life. But the type of witchcraft that emerged had little resemblance to the dark satanic practice of actual or alleged witches of earlier history. Indeed, there is almost no real historical connection between 16th and 17th century witches and the new religions associated with witchcraft today. Several new traditions of witchcraft have arisen over the past decades, all of which have different roots, as journalists and neo-pagan practitioners Margaret Adler so aptly explains. Right? And they go through the different witches. You could definitely read this for yourself if you want to get the book. All right. When did they get into cultural spiritualism? Alright, cultural spiritualists. Let's get into it. Alright, cultural spiritualists are involved in syncretic belief systems, or those that combine 2 or more very different cultural and religious beliefs and rituals in one harmonious belief system. Thus, cultural spiritual faiths harmoniously blend magic or supernatural rites specific to one particular culture with certain religious traditions specific to another in very different culture. Because the religious belief systems of cultural spiritualists are deeply tied to foreign cultural roots and polytheistic religions which differ greatly from those of the American mainstream, people fear their spiritual beliefs and often condemn their activities. Most persons involved in cultural spiritualist faiths, however, are simply practicing a belief system that is an integral part of their historical and cultural tradition. Okay? And this is what we're definitely dealing with. And so, while many different types of cultural spiritualism are practiced in the United States, the 2 most different or 2 most often referenced in law enforcement circles are those with the Afro-Caribbean roots or Afro-Caribbean roots. Such belief systems specifically evolved when African slaves were removed from their native culture and forcibly converted to a new cultural, economic, social, and religious lifestyle in the Caribbean. Adherents of these faiths began their forced journeys to the United States several decades ago. Today, it's estimated that between 1 and 1.5 million people living in America practice some sort of Afro-Caribbean faith. Okay. Cultural spiritualist religions other than those discussed in the study or practice in the United States. Brujeria, which roots or are tied to Mexico, is commonly practiced parts of southwestern United States. The accompanying box describes some of the belief symbols and ritual components practiced by the American brujos. Voodoo, practice in parts of the American South and other localities, shares some Afro-Caribbean roots, but as the accompanying box indicates, is distinct from Santeria and Palo Mayombe. Santeria and Palo Mayombe have not been selected for an in-depth analysis in this chapter because the practitioners are more often involved in criminal activities than other called cultural spiritualists, because that's the culture, drug culture. So Santeria is a syncretic belief system that combines the cultural and spiritual beliefs of the southwestern Nigerian Yoruba tribe with the religious practices of the Catholic faith. It involves using magical rituals to procreate or satisfy a pantheon of gods, primarily for positive personal reasons of the practitioner. Like all the other Afro-Caribbean belief systems, Santeria found its way to the South and North America through the system of slavery. When Yoruba slaves were first transported to Cuba in the 18th and 19th century, their Catholic masters forbade traditional religious practice in which many gods or orishas were worshipped. Prior to granting legal entry into the country, the Yoruba were forcibly baptized as Roman Catholics. To survive, the Yoruba arrivals called Lukumi after their way of greeting each other as Olukumi, or my friend, developed a new cultural religious tradition that was at once a resistance to Catholic oppression and an accommodation to Catholic values. So, energy can never be destroyed. It only takes a different shape. And for that era, that was the new shape. You know what I'm saying? They even have, at a certain point in time, with the voodoo, or, with the voodoo and voodoo shit here, they have, what is his name? Who was the president that freed the slaves? Abraham Lincoln. They have Abraham Lincoln like he was the Messiah of that day. You know what I'm saying? And so they even have him immortalized as the image of I think it might be Baron Samedi, if I'm not mistaken. I have to do my research on that again, but I know it is one of the guys in the voodoo pantheon. So now the way of the saints, because the devotion of the orishas were carried out beneath the images of the Catholic saints. By the mid-18th century, the Yoruba tradition had been successfully and secretly adapted to Cuban society and the demands of the Catholic priests. The orishas were carefully disguised as saints, santos, and honored in church during Catholic feasts. The new syncretism called Santeria, or Lukumi in Cuba, was eventually introduced to other Latin American countries. In Brazil, it became known as Candomblé, Shango in Trinidad, and Voodoo in Haiti. Right? Voodoo, another form of cultural spiritualism. Rumors of voodoo involvement play a significant role in American folklore, especially in the South. However, very few studies have been conducted that subject the practice of voodoo in American rigorous examination. As demonstrated below, what we do know are the very basics of voodoo history and how it became first a Caribbean and then an American transplant. The origins of the word voodoo are not clear. Some practitioners claim French roots from the word voodoo. I do not know how to pronounce French, not even gonna lie, meaning golden calf, while others point to a corruption of the Western African term voodoo, voodoo, which historically has referred to various gods and spirits. The practice of what is commonly called voodoo in the Caribbean was often known as voodoo or hoodoo in America, stemmed from African occult religion known as juju, which dates back thousands of years to the Ashanti tribe who worship snakes. African juju was changed a little over the centuries. The practitioners cast a good spell, a bad spell, or a spell designed to protect the client from a spell already cast upon them. Some spells are benevolent, designed to help sick persons or help a person with the affection or desire of a mate. Others are malevolent, capable of inflicting serious injury or illness, even death, on an enemy of the client. The practitioner's powers are derived from various gods who tell them that the action to take under a certain set of circumstances are also obtained from herbs and fetishes, intimate objects that are believed to be inhabited by a spirit capable of having its own way unless soothed and exercised by the proper rites of the practitioner. Okay, so we're going to keep going. Let's go into Palo Mayombe. So Palomayombe is a syncretic Afro-Caribbean religious belief system that combines the cultural and spiritual belief systems of the ancient Afro-Congo tribes with the religious practices of Yoruba slavers and Catholicism. It uses magic rituals that manipulate, captivate, and/or control another person's, most often for the practitioners' malevolent purposes. Like their brothers from Nigeria, the Congo slaves were forcibly brought to the Caribbean and subsequently adapted their cultural and religious belief systems to the culture and Catholic religious traditions of their new home. Through their assimilation process, the Congo slaves also incorporated some of their beliefs, symbols, and rituals of Santeria. The results of this particular syncretic was Palo Mayombe, derived from the Spanish palo, meaning wooden stick or branch, referring to the pieces of wood the practitioners of the Poleros, the Mayamberos, used for their magic spells. Although the origins of the Mayambero and the Santero share similar roots, it's important to note that two features that distinguish the rituals and beliefs of these different individual belief systems. Hold on, let me just walk. Ooh, sugar getting dry. All right, let's go. So, although the origins of the Mayambero and Santero share similar roots, it's important to note that two features distinguish the rituals and beliefs of these different and individualistic belief systems. First, while many Mayamberos were first initiated in Santeria, very few Santerians also practice Palo Mayombe. Florida law enforcement officials estimate no more than 10% of Santeria practitioners in their state are also involved in Palo, because Palo is more of the darker side. Palo is more of the, it's made for war. Made for war times, you know what I mean? So, deal with it, shit. It works. I don't even deal with what works. All the shit I got work. So, indeed, most Santeria practitioners feel Mayambero, claiming he practices a sinister form of Santeria, right? Like I said, it's the darker side, which they call brujeria, black magic or witchcraft. I see. Second, the rituals of Santeria most often focus on positive actions designed to improve one's personal position or please an Orisha. Palo Mayombe, on the other hand, centers its ritual around the spirit of the dead, often using magic to inflict misfortune or death upon an enemy. That shit is for war. That shit is for battle. Okay? In fact, the Mayambero does not use the Orisha, but rather invokes the evil spirit of one of the specific patron who resides in his Nganga, the cauldron used during most rituals. Practitioners perform magic by controlling the spirits who mediate good and evil in the natural world. According to Maijin Gonzalez Whippler, a Santerian scholar and practitioner, Mayamberos are divided into two distinctly different categories. Those who practice benevolent or neutral magic, the Mayamberos Christian Mayamberos, and those who practice malevolent magic, the Mayamberos Judeos, the Jewish Mayamberos. Interesting. This differentiation is made by the Poleros because the Christian cauldron in which their secrets are kept is sprinkled with the holy water, and the Jewish one is not. To the practitioners of Palo, who is like the Santeros, are steeped in Catholic tradition, anyone or anything that is not baptized is evil and does not belong to God. Because the ceremony of baptism utilizes holy water for the rejection of the devil. Everything that is sprinkled with this liquid is considered by the Poleros to be baptized and purified. Evil spirits are believed to be frightened away and burned by the touch of holy water. The Poleros of Mayamberos, who is Christian, works with the forces of God, whom they call Sambia, a corruption of the Congo name for the Dia Nsambi. The unbaptized or Polero Judeos work with the Kadium Pimbe, the name given to the devil by the Congos. All Poleros work with the spirits of nature, such as the trees, plants, river, water, and animals. Christian Poleros also work with the spirits of the dead, but only with the good spirits. Unbaptized Poleros work exclusively with the spirits of suicide, criminals, and evil witches. Evil Mayamberos must take an Nganga or sacred cauldron, which he practices his magic. Inside are kept various symbols of Palo Mayombe, including human bones, which are described in chapter 3. Okay. So, basic foundations of Santeria. All right. Brujeria. Like I said, they get in our definitions of everything. They get pretty deep. Yes. Now, this is what I really wanted to get into, just to give an understanding, because it's deep, dealing with Satanism and, occult in America and stuff like that. We have to really make a distinction, because everything has been lumped under this banner of Satanism, because even if you want to deny that, you follow Christian doctrine, you're still under the guise of, an evil satanic forces out there, and, that magic is connected to that, which we've clearly made the distinction between magic and, we're going to, make the distinction between Satanism, which is actually a religious system and has nothing to do with spiritualism, or has nothing to do with anything spiritual at all. It's very human in its creation. It's very human in its understanding. So, delving into this, that's what I want you to understand. Satanism has nothing to do with consciousness. And everything that we talk about has everything to do with consciousness. It has everything to do with going to a higher state of mind. Magic is the use of and control of natural forces. We're dealing with something that, can raise our awareness to the point where we can see beyond this reality. That's where we're at. That's the point that we're at. The connection. We've understood the connection now because we have the internet. We have cell phones. The world is connected now. We understand that connection a little better. We have video games. We have, understandings of how to create worlds and understandings of how to create reality now. This, we've left the old world behind, where, our minds are centered in a higher state, even as we, deal with just the fucking technology. The technology, if not going to the fucking fifth dimension and things of that nature, is going to put people's minds at a higher state, because it's that time. It's that time for us to delve into the quantum world. It's that time for us to go to the fifth dimension. It's that time for us to have access to this information, to be the gods. Because that's all that being a god is being able to go to a higher state and being able to reflect that understanding in creation. Okay? It's a level of achievement, of mastery. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and break open and bust open this, Satanism seal and get the fucking, just the drossel over the word. Because even me saying Satanism, Satan over and over again, I don't even like saying the fucking word. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's because it's dealing with a certain level of fucking Christian programming. But it's something that we really have to deal with, because this is not the shit that, niggas, nobody's fucking with this. Nobody's fucking with this. So let's go into it. So while many people are ignorant and sometimes fearful of the occult-related activities associated with paganism, witchcraft, and cultural spiritualism, such fear cannot match the horrific images attached to Satanism. The very idea that one can worship Satan is diametrically opposed to the Judeo-Christian religious backgrounds of most Americans. Such fear makes it more important that those in law enforcement understand the belief system, activities, and symbolism of yesterday's and today's practicing Satanists. Ironically, the initial use of the word Satan and devil are not connected with evil. Satan obtained his name from the Hebrew word Satan, meaning adversary, obstacle, opponent, or one who obstructs. Similarly, the word devil is derived from the Greek diabolos, meaning a slanderer, perjurer, or adversary. Despite the earlier use of both words, the idea of Satan as an evil force in nature did not appear until the 6th century BC. At that time, the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster spread throughout Persia, creating one of the earliest monotheistic religions. Zoroastrianism was the first religion to espouse the absolute principle of the evil teaching, that two forces in the universe were in an eternal battle. The principle of light, Ahura Mazda, who was the source of all good, and the principle of darkness, Angra Mainyu, the source of all evil. Both forces were locked in a continual battle, attempting to destroy each other until the coming of judgment, when the forces of light would triumph in this story. Thus, Zoroastrianism became the first of the only 4 world religions that have had a real devil. The ancient Hebrews were the second religion to embrace the modern concept of Satan. After the Hebrews were conquered in 586 BC, they were expelled from Jerusalem and deported to Babylonia. When Babylonia fell to Cyrus the Great of Persia in 538 BC, evolving the Hebrew faith was exposed to Zoroastrianism. Previously, Satan had maintained a religious role derivative from the name Satan. Satan was an accuser. He accused men before God, exposed their infidelity, and then helped God bring about their punishment. God was responsible for both good and evil. Zoroastrian influences, however, drastically changed the Hebrew faith, and the Jewish Sheol, once a place of eternal peace and sleep, was transformed into hell, a place of damnation and punishment for the wicked. Okay, so when we deal with Sheol, place of hell, place of damnation, punishment for the wicked. The serpent that tempted Eve became Satan in disguise, and the devil became the originator of all evil and the author of death. Okay. Fourth dimension. So, for centuries, the Hebrews believed in two personified and conflicted forces of good and evil. Modern Judaism, however, rejects the concept of a personified being leading the forces of evil, and instead teaches that evil is the result of an imperfect state of the created world and from humans' misuse of free will. In contemporary society, the only two world religions that still believe in the personified struggle for power between God and Satan, Christianity and Islam. For approximately the first 800 years of Christianity, Satan served a role similar to that of the Hebrew early theology. He was primarily the temptation who led men astray in order to extract their punishment. In essence, because the early Christians were constantly under siege from external forces, they were too busy to worry about any internal threats conveyed by a totally evil satanic force. Once Christianity gained power and influence throughout Europe, and Christians became aware of the vast influence of primitive religions played in society, they embarked upon a crusade to convert all non-believers. Despite several centuries of missionary work, the Christians were dismayed to find that many people, as well as converts, still held on to beliefs of their nature-oriented polytheistic religions. So clearly, something was evil in the midst. Something took on the personage of Satan. Thereafter, the Satan of the New Testament, a creature of God believed to be the fallen angel committed to be exacting evil powers, acted as an opponent or opposite principle to God. Fear of Satan's power in European communities reached previously unknown heights during the Inquisition, 1700s, with the rumors that avowed the Satanists, who were then known as witches, practiced a blasphemous black mass and other activities described in the occult debate, which no one has ever seen. This was all propaganda, and they're gonna tell you that this shit is all fucking propaganda. Fear of Satan's powers subsided for almost 200 years until novelist J.K. Heisman wrote a fictional account of his attendance at a black mass in Paris, during which the congregation met secretly. I don't feel like reading that because it's bullshit. And what about Satanism in the New World? Satanic researcher Arthur Lyons emphasizes that Satanism is defined by actual satanic worship, has never been proven to exist in any organized form in America. Nobody's here worshiping Satan. Most accounts of Satanism in the pre-20th century in America were either wildly narrated by writers wishing to make a splash in literary circles, or vicious attacks by the terrified, superstitious individuals seeking a scapegoat for their own personal misfortunes. Okay. All right. Religious Satanists. Religious Satanists belong to an organized and legal satanic church whose members advocate egoism, indulgence, in the acquisition and use of personal and political power. Members, say satanic scholar Arthur Lyons, adopt an unorthodox theological reconstruction of the devil quite different from that of Christianity. Satan is perceived not as evil, but as a Miltonian symbol of man's carnality and rationality. Some human shit. Straight fucking human. Look, and when I say that, let me turn this shit off. So, religious Satanists belong to organized and legal satanic churches whose members advocate egoism, indulgence, power acquisition, and political power. Currently, at least 2 formal satanic churches provide services to their small congregations. The Church of Satan, founded in 1966 by Anton Sanzor LaVey, and the Temple of Set, founded in 1974 by a dissident member of LaVey's flock, Michael Aquino, in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Several smaller splinter groups formed, but today most of these are defunct. Is it not funny that during the conscious movement of the 1960s and 70s and the rise of consciousness in the 60s and 70s, they just so happened to create these, satanic churches, which is giving a bad rap to consciousness, which forces them to lump everything under the guise of Satanism. This is like propaganda through time that we're seeing that has been used, just like the word terrorism, just like the word terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Just like the word savage, you know what I'm saying, that they use at a certain time, calling people witches and, evil and satanic and things of these natures, attributing this and using this as a fear campaign to get people into destroying and converting, the old cultures, the old world. It was the true destruction of the old world through the 1700s, because there was a lot of wars that were fought. A lot of people died. A lot of our ancestors died. A lot of Moors over there died. And a lot of those people ended up coming to, when they got kicked out of Spain and shit, they went over to France and fucking Ireland and shit like that. And then a lot of those motherfuckers came over to America, to like North and South Carolina, and was slaves and shit. So it's a lot. And they assimilated into the culture. There's books on that shit. I'll get the names and post that shit. But it's definitely pretty deep when it comes to that period between the 14 and 1700s, which we know little about. It's told to us in movies and shit like that, and given to us as a sort of romance type period, but we don't know much about it. But what I do know is that our ancestors were up against certain European groups that kicked them out. Anybody who was still dealing with the old world, that was still dealing with the old faith, was kicked out. A lot of those people, just so happened to look like me. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot, dealing with it, because it's a lot of stories out there, and a lot of people that are telling our stories, especially about what happened to our ancestors and how they were killed off at a certain time, and how we went from being kings and queens, to them only telling the stories of when we were prisoners of war in America. You know what I'm saying? So totally different, but let's go ahead and keep going, because I want to give this distinction. So traditional occult or Satanists. So traditional religions fail to meet the personal need of many contemporary Americans. For those who lost traditional ties to religion, belief in the occult phenomenon can provide new feeling of importance and power, as well as an attractive alternative belief system to Christianity. Instead of the don'ts in the Christian Bible, alternative beliefs in some occult philosophies give people permission to do whatever they want, to explore limitless pleasures, and live by whatever rules they please. Some families have ties to occult belief systems, which they pass down from generation to generation. Some children are either born into and or raised into certain occult belief systems. Occult belief systems often provide feelings of power and control. Many occult belief systems emphasize that followers may experience power over oneself, others, and external environment. Such power, according to some occult belief systems, provide a license to be involved in any action usually condemned by mainstream society. In other words, it provides a perfect avenue for the rebelliousness as well as criminality. Okay. Reasons for involvement: materials, small, intimate in nature, young people. Yeah, and that's pretty much the summary. So, yeah, I just wanted to go make this about 40 minutes. That's pretty much this is the book. They're gonna go into the criminality of it, and you can look for yourself if you're definitely interested in the book. Once again, this is the Office of Criminal Justice Planning Research Update, the Great Seal of the State of California. So this is some real shit. This is from winter of 1989, 1990. I haven't been able to find any other fucking book. It was the weirdest thing because I wasn't looking for this book. The Spirit brought me this book. I was like I looked some shit up, right? Like I heard a word. I heard this word. I was like, I channeled this word, and it was like fucking something. What the fuck? It was some weird shit. Like, I don't even remember the fucking word combination that I put in. And I put this shit in, and like, it was like seahorse or some shit like that. Yeah, like seahorse or some shit. It was like something seahorse, and put it in, just like put it in. And when I put this shit in, all of a sudden I'm like scrolling down, and all of a sudden I see this little PDF, and I just click it. And when I click the PDF, I fucking noticed that it's about the occult. I was like, what the fuck? I start going down this shit, and it's like the Office of Criminal Justice Planning. Crazy shit. So I decided to give this to the people because it's a great teaching tool. If you want to learn about the occult, if you want to understand just a little bit more about it, there's definitely a lot more books that go more in depth, but for something that's like basic for someone who knows nothing about the occult, this is the shit. So this has been Studies in the Fifth Dimension. Peace.